Hello and welcome everybody to Small Talk with Shivy, my LCS postgame interview content. I'm here with Shopify Rebellion's very own mid laner Insanity, and after a tough loss, I'm going to say, obviously you guys coming out of the week 1-1, can you kind of talk to me about the prep going into this match into TL? Because you guys played a fantastic game going into FlyQuest. The running meme is that you guys can only beat the best team. I mean, could you maybe dive a little bit into the prep? Like, did you guys maybe over prep for FlyQuest, or was there stuff you weren't expecting from TL? Kind of what evolved into the draft prep for this?
I don't think we really over prepped for either team or under prepped in my opinion, but I
Mm-hmm.
think that I don't really know. Today just went wrong, I guess. Like as simple as it sounds, sometimes that kind of just happens. I think we didn't play too well today, and I guess TL was just pretty on top of their game. I think a lot of the game we kind of just beat ourselves, if that makes sense. Like
Mm-hmm.
we are just kind of bleeding gold across the map. But our early game was pretty solid for a little bit, and then we kind of threw in the bot river. But
Yeah. I do want to talk about kind of the communication and gelling together as a roster, because last week I was able to talk to Zazel and he's like, yeah, we are actually just like splitting scrims with B-Voy, and it's kind of been like the only first week that you guys have had him now in the roster. Now it's 2 weeks. Do you guys feel like you kind of are at a little bit of a disadvantage when it comes to like playing together as a five-man roster because of the visa issues and stuff like that?
Um, I would say that it is a tiny bit of a disadvantage, but uh, we've had him for what, like 3, 4 weeks now, I believe. I don't really
Yeah.
remember the timeline, but um, if we had more time to practice, maybe just maybe we would have been more gelled together as a team. But I think we're still making a lot of improvements right now. And for example, to play the game against FlyQuest or the games against the top teams that we've played, that's just us playing close to our best. I think we can play a lot better than that still. And for me, at least, I think it's just about getting the consistency down across the board and just playing well together as a team every game.
So coming out of the Super Week, right? You mentioned, working on things and improving. What were some of the big things that you guys tried to tackle coming into this week? You guys have a little bit of a longer week, right? A little bit more practice, a little bit more time to kind of review everything that's been happening. What were some of the maybe big points that you guys are trying to take away from this week and come out like, okay, we worked on this, we did better on this, so on and so forth?
Um, Pretty much just working on mostly fundamentals right now, in my opinion. At least from what I can remember. Like we actually only have so many days to practice with the way it works
Yeah.
since we have an off day on Monday. So it's like 4 days, and sometimes sometimes teams kind of double book scrim, so it gets a little bit unlucky. So you only get 3 days of practice plus like maybe one block against the team. But
Mhm.
overall, it's not actually a lot of time that you get to practice. Um, I would actually enjoy playing more than just 2 scrim sets a day, but it's always up to everybody else in the league as well. And I think that our practice was pretty good this week, anyways. Definitely didn't expect to lose today or lose in the fashion that we did, but I think we are not as bad as we showed today, and you can see that in our shining spots when we do play against the top teams. But hopefully, we can continue to improve. There is also a break coming, so I think we have like what 3, 4 days off before we start up streams again, and I think we're all going to be grinding right away.
It feels like the LCS, this split is a little bit more competitive kind of overall, right? Obviously, two teams leaving, condensation of talent, that kind of stuff happens. But obviously, you've been playing, within the tier 2 and tier 1 scene now for a bit. Do you feel like the LCS right now is super competitive? Because it kind of feels like anybody can like beat anybody, right? I think there's like a potential tie, three-way tie potentially for like second place. First place isn't even secured. Like the top teams can sometimes drop games. How do you feel about the overall strength of the LCS in this particular split?
Um, Honestly, in my opinion, the strength of the LCS teams this year, like it kind of goes both ways from what I've been watching.
Hmm.
I think a lot of the time it does seem like the overall mechanic, like skill floor, has risen across the board, and
Yeah.
a lot of the time as well, it does seem like people are making pretty uncharacteristic mistakes, like very simple things that people shouldn't be making mistakes on. I don't really know what to attribute that to, but for the most part, when everybody's on point, I think the overall skill of the LCS this year has definitely grown, and I'm not sure competitive wise, like it does feel like every team has a strong shining spot on their team. Not necessarily player, but the way they play the game, if that makes sense. Like
Hmm.
Not really sure what to pinpoint for each team, but I think every team has a strength right now, and just working on all of our weaknesses, I guess.
Follow up on that, I gotta ask you because there has been some chatter around like the analytics space and just everything like that. A lot of people are saying that North America actually looks much better than EU this time around. I don't know how much of the EU, matches you've been able to watch. You've been able to catch some of that stuff. Do you kind of feel that you're stronger, or maybe last year even that Worlds kind of proved that? Like, how do you feel about watching the games in like Europe and obviously LPL and Korea? Like, have you been able to catch a lot of those international games?
Well, I pretty much watch every match that I think is, like, filled with good teams just
I
to try to
see.
learn from them and stuff like that. From the LEC, the only team that I've seen play that I thought was, like, really insane or anything was G2, but to be fair,
Hmm.
I haven't watched many LEC games in general, so G2 is the one that shines out the most, obviously, and I still think they're a really solid team, and they're really creative and unique with their drafts, which I really enjoy watching, but I think other than that, like, LPL and LCK, I've watched as many games as possible. I do think that for the most part across the board, NA teams have been more consistent in their terms of skill. Like there have been a lot of blunders in LEC, like just random people missing their Azir ults, for example. But
Yeah.
I don't blame them. Honestly, it's probably an Azir bug or something. I think it has to do with the map, the new map. So I'm not gonna give them too much shit for it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And I know you did a previous interview somewhere along the line where you talked about kind of being more creative, listening to other personalities about your picks and stuff like that. Do you think NA overall has kind of, at least in the past, kind of lost that creativity? And are you really trying to like explore all the avenues that the game gives you? Because it feels like this season in particular, it feels the most open to kind of try new things, play new champions, and you've been one of the pioneers. I'm not going to say pioneers, but you've been one of the champions for that in regards to like trying out different champions, doing different styles, looking at mid lane fundamentally in a different way.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's not that I wanna be like some creative genius or
Of
something
course
that
not.
figures
Yeah.
out the meta. And I don't even think necessarily that I don't wanna play the meta picks. I actually enjoy playing the meta picks a lot, and for me, it's always been meta first into having other pocket picks that, like, for example, when you get banned out or you have to drop because your team thinks they have to pick champions on 1, 2, 3, for example, if they
Hmm.
ban those out, then I like having, like, other picks that either they haven't practiced first or just seem good because, they haven't played the matchup or it just does something good for our comp. I like to think like that, but I think one of the reasons why it seems maybe it's like a little bit more creative this year rather than the past few is simply because the LCS is playing on the live patch week to week, right? So naturally, I think in the past teams gravitated towards getting their ideas, not all of their ideas and like draft ideas, etc., from watching other regions and how they draft, but I think now it's kind of harder for them to do that. So a lot of teams are trying to just figure out what works well for them. And in a lot of cases, it is just what the meta is because a lot of the meta champs haven't really been touched too much or like hard nerfed or pushed out of the meta by patches. So a lot of it will stay similar in my opinion. But I think here and there will be champions that pop up. For example, today APA played Asol. I think Asol got mega over buffed before they hotfixed him. I think he's still really strong after the hotfix, but I think it's not necessarily a blind pick champ. There will be random stuff like that that people will pick up on slowly.
And obviously, you guys are the only kind of region that plays on the live patch. Do you think, obviously, going a lot forward, going into like international tournaments, stuff like that, is that a detriment to the LCS? Like, do you think NA teams will kind of revert back to what you were talking about, copying what the best teams do? Or do you think they'll try to like innovate a little bit more going into international tournaments, even if they're not playing on the live patch and it's more of a solid stuck patch for like 2 weeks?
Mm, I think it's actually a good thing. I think when like for example Europe or NA has sort of gravitated towards what's been meta in other regions and try to copy their style. I don't think it has worked out too well for pretty much anybody. I think even the year that G2 was they were in finals if I remember correctly, right? And they lost to FPX. I think that year, for example, they had a fighting chance because they were more of a creative team and played to what they thought was good and to their strengths. And I think that is probably one of the better chances that any team from Europe, NA, etc., has to win or like at least compete in worlds. I think if we just all play exactly what's meta every single game, it's not necessarily going to get us that far unless we have some major improvement. But I'm not sure, honestly.
Fair enough. Final question here. Where do you kind of find the time to practice these kind of champions, right? Because I know for like watching LCS for years, a lot of mid laners, and it doesn't matter the role, there usually be like a subset of champions that are really meta. You grind scrims that week or grind scrims for the 2 weeks, hoping that it obviously doesn't get nerfed and stuff like that. And you kind of like have a rotation of champions. Are you just like a real big grinder, or do you like intrinsic or intuitively like can figure out champions, where they work and why they work, right? You're the only guy playing stuff like Garen, Sion, Zach, bringing it in. Like, do you accredit it to your ability to pick up champions quicker than maybe other players? Or is it more of your kind of attitude of just, I'm going to make this work. I think it's good. And I don't care how many games it takes to figure that out.
I think part of it I would attribute to me like confidently saying that I can pick up champs pretty quickly, but also part of it comes from the fact that I've played this game for so long. I've pretty much like one tricked or mained every champ in the game except for, as far as I can remember, Camille or New Urgot.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of muscle memory in it, and the changes that come with these champs that make them stronger, I think it's a very easy thing to learn because it just makes them stronger. You know, it just gives you more of an ability to push your limit. But honestly, for example, like Sion, Garen, Zach, those champs aren't really that difficult as well. So like honestly, I shouldn't have picked Garen that game either. I don't actually think that the champion is too broken in mid. I think in some scenarios it can be, but I think overall it's a better top laner. And I think Zach that game I played pretty well, and I think that champ is just broken right now in general. But I do think it's a better top laner as well. Um, the Sion, honestly, it's more of a counter pick. I think we kind of got forced into blinding it, but overall, those games as well, I think we could have won probably all of them except for the Garen game. I think we played pretty poorly that game, and I'm not really too sure. I don't remember that game that much, but
Yeah, I mean, you're also somebody that brought out the Graves mid last season, the Zayrath, Kassadin, Cho'Gath. Like, people that have only been paying attention to you this season would look at the tank picks, but you've always been somebody, in my opinion, that's been trying to bring stuff new to the table. And it sounds like you're just a grind lord, right? You've one-tricked every champion at one point. You just put the hours in. Insanity, I appreciate it. I know it's tough coming in for an interview after a loss, but I appreciate your time. Do you have any shout outs to the Shopify Rebellion fans, the Insanity fans, anybody?
shout out to the people that support us. I'm not a Sion one trick, unfortunately, and I'm sorry to say that there probably won't be as many crazy picks, but hopefully we can bring you guys some more wins, and we're gonna try to make our hardest shot at playoffs so that you guys can keep supporting us.
Thank you so much, Insanity. Hey everybody, thanks for watching the video. I'm hoping you guys enjoyed the content. If you did, leave a like, comment, do all that jazz. I genuinely try to respond to every single comment I see because it's always interesting to see the other opinions of people that care about League of Legends esports as much as I do. Obviously, the best way to support me is to hit that subscribe button and hit the bell for notifications on my latest uploads. If you want to see more of me and my content, I stream on Twitch 5 days a week. The link will be in the description box below. If you are into short form content, I'm also on TikTok. We talk about LPL, LCK, LEC, all the stuff over there. We talk about roster moves. So if your jam is short form content, head over to TikTok, hit the follow button there. I'm also on Twitter. So all of that stuff will be in the description box below. But other than that, thanks for watching the video, and I hope to see you soon.